Dive Podcast, straight talk on politics, national security, and America's future. With Robert Johnson and Linda Miller, we cut through the spin, tackle the tough issues, and give you the real story behind today's headlines. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell to stay informed.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into the weeds on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, trying to understand the shifting perspectives and, well, what potential paths to resolution might even look like now.
Yeah, it's constantly evolving, isn't it? We'll be looking at recent statements, actions involving Zelensky, Trump, Putin, the main players.
And we've got some interesting sources to draw from, reports from The Economist, RBC, some analysis via the national interests, and even Fox News, so quite a mix.
Definitely gives us different angles. The goal, I suppose, is to cut through some of the noise, you know?
Exactly. Pinpoint the core positions, maybe spot any strategy shifts, and just grasp the sheer complexity of, well, any future peace talks.
Okay. So where should we start?
Let's kick off with this quite unexpected report about Zelensky. In the Vatican, of all places.
Ah, yes, The Economist covered that. A meeting between Zelensky and Trump, right? During Pope Francis's funeral.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
Very short, maybe 15 minutes, and it sounds like France might have helped set it up.
And Zelensky's attendance itself was a bit last minute, or so the report suggests.
Right. And his message seems pretty clear according to the source.
He told Trump, Kiev is ready for an unconditional ceasefire. That's the main takeaway. And urged him not to sort of step away from the peace process.
Zelensky called the talks very symbolic. He explicitly mentioned discussing a full and unconditional ceasefire. What do you make of that framing? Is it pure diplomacy or something more tactical?
Well, it could be aimed at Trump's desire for deal-making, perhaps, appealing to that side of him. But then you have Trump's side of the story.
Yeah, his take was a bit different. He said the meeting was good.
And he noted Zelensky seemed calmer, which is an interesting observation in itself.
She also said something like he's glad Zelensky is trying to do something good for his country and that he'll be watching. But then
he added that Zelensky asked for more weapons.
Exactly. So you have Zelensky pushing this ceasefire idea very strongly, it seems.
While Trump highlights the weapons request and Zelensky's mood. It's quite a contrast, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Which neatly brings us to Trump's overall perspective. It feels like it's, well, maybe shifting.
Possibly. He's been saying that Putin respects him, and because of that respect, Putin won't take all of Ukraine.
Which is quite different from his earlier line, wasn't it? That the war started because Putin didn't respect Biden.
Right, a definite change in narrative there. He also seems to think Putin wants to end the conflict.
But he adds a caveat, doesn't he, that Putin might be stringing him along on the peace front.
Exactly. There's that element of doubt. And then the national interest throws another potential curveball in.
The report suggesting Trump is actually disappointed? Is that the right word? Mr. Key off with Zelensky?
Yes, disappointed. Apparently because Zelensky turned down some earlier peace proposals.
Okay, if that's true, that could be significant. How might that disappointment affect Trump's actions moving forward?
Well, the national interest speculates it could lead to the U.S. pulling back. Maybe Trump sees Kiev as unwilling to make necessary concessions, like territory.
So a potential U.S. disengagement from the peace process itself. That's a major possibility.
It seems to be on the table, according to that analysis. And tied into that, Trump is also saying Europe needs to step up more.
Right. Take more responsibility for the peace process and for Ukraine's security.
Which links to that Newsweek report about European troops possibly monitoring a ceasefire line.
A concept Zelensky himself floated earlier, needing maybe 200,000 troops, if I remember correctly.
But Russia's reaction to that idea was swift and negative. Shoigu called them occupational forces.
Yeah, a very strong rejection, which tells you a lot about Russia's view on any kind of Western boots on the ground, even for peacekeeping.
Absolutely, a clear red line.
Yeah.
So let's pivot to Russia's official stance then. What are they putting out there?
Well, RBC reported on a temporary ceasefire they announced around Victory Day, May 7th to 11th.
They framed it as a display of goodwill, didn't they? A sign they're ready for a peaceful settlement.
But Zelensky's response wasn't exactly embracing it. He called for something much bigger.
An immediate, full, and unconditional ceasefire, lasting at least 30 days, as a baseline for real talks.
The difference in scope, a few days versus a month, conditional versus unconditional, it really highlights the gap, doesn't it?
Immense gap. And then there are the core demands Russia keeps making. The national interest points this out again.
Neutrality for Ukraine, no NATO membership.
The usual sticking points. And NATO, predictably, rejects those terms. So that fundamental disagreement remains.
And layered on top of all this political maneuvering is the military reality, including Russia's updated nuclear doctrine.
Right. The national interest flagged this too. It's a potentially worrying shift. They've broadened the conditions for using nuclear weapons.
How so exactly? What's the change?
It now includes scenarios where Russia is attacked by a non-nuclear state, if that state has nuclear-armed allies providing support.
So if Ukraine, using Western weapons perhaps, were to strike deep into Russia, Moscow could theoretically view that as triggering this new clause.
That seems to be the implication, yes. Peskov, Putin's spokesperson, basically confirmed the doctrine as public and clearly defines the conditions. It adds another layer of, well, potential escalation.
Definitely raises the stakes. And Shoigu's warnings about Western peacekeepers fit into this escalatory rhetoric, too.
Very much so. He didn't just call them occupiers. He warned their deployment could lead towards World War III.
He framed it as intervention aimed at seizing Ukrainian land and resources, didn't he?
Yes, and the rhetoric got quite extreme. Accusations about protecting a Nazi regime, suppressing Orthodox Christians, trying to wipe out Russian language and culture.
That's incredibly strong language. Shows a narrative that's almost impossible to reconcile with Western viewpoints.
Completely. Which brings us to another factor often lurking beneath the surface: economic interests.
Right. Both the national interest and Fox News connect potential peace deals to Ukraine's mineral wealth.
The significant resources we're talking about: titanium, lithium, uranium, graphite, manganese, rare earths. Stuff the U.S. and others really need.
And the national interest actually argues that overtly pursuing these resources could escalate the conflict, not help resolve it. It creates a clash between peace goals and economic ones.
It's a tricky dynamic.
Yeah.
How do you balance those? And Mike Waltz, who advises Trump, weighed in on this too, according to Fox News.
What was his take?
He claims Zelensky missed a chance to sign a historic deal on developing these minerals. Wall seemed to think such a deal could have acted as a security guarantee for Ukraine.
Interesting perspective. Did Waltz add anything else?
Yeah, he also called Ukraine one of the most corrupt countries, emphasizing the need for strict oversight on any U.S. investments. A very critical view.
So, putting Waltz's comments alongside the resource angle, could it be that Trump is thinking there's less incentive for the U.S. to push for peace if access to those minerals isn't part of the deal?
That's the potential conclusion some are drawing, yes. That if the economic benefit isn't clear or achievable for the U.S., the drive to stay deeply involved in the peace process might weaken, maybe leading to that disengagement we talked about.
Okay, so pulling all these threads together, it's a really complex picture. You've got Zelensky pushing hard for an immediate full ceasefire.
Then Trump, whose commitment seems, well, uncertain, maybe conditional on factors like resources or his personal assessment of Zelensky.
Contrasted sharply with Russia's fixed conditions neutrality, no NATO, and their stark warnings against any Western troops on the ground.
The sources really paint a picture of fundamental disagreements, shifting alliances or potential alliances, and deep-seated mistrust. Very uncertain.
It really is. Which leads us to the final thought we want to leave you, the listener, with today.
Yeah, considering everything we've unpacked, the stated goals, the potential underlying interests, the rhetoric.
What path forward do you think is most likely for this conflict? And maybe even more crucially, what do you see as the single biggest obstacle standing in the way of a truly lasting peace?
Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We're here to make things clear. New episodes every day.